It's ups and downs for a real one. But you're gonna be a lame all your life, hater.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. Today's show is also brought to you by Wise, W-Y-Z-E, wise.com for all of your camera needs. We'll talk about them a little bit later on today. We're going to be looking back at all of Monday's games as the last 10 days in the NBA season begins. We're also going to have a quick look to streaming value players for Tuesday and a quick wrap up of injury news and some potential opportunities that might arise in those situations. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. Let's start where we always do on these shows.
Monstrous line of the night.
The monstrous line of the night. It goes to Eric Bledsoe of the Milwaukee Bucks. Bledsoe was fantastic. Now, he didn't play in the last game when the Bucks rested everybody, but he came back strong here. 34 minutes in a game where Chris Middleton sat out, 29 points, 3 triples, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, but 5 steals and 2 blocks. Really gets it done for Bledsoe. He was 53% shooting from the field. He was a perfect 6 of 6 from the free throw line as well. Really, really good stuff from Bledsoe. And despite some ups and downs, and there's been some significant downs this season, he still is the 45th ranked player over the course of the season. In large part, the discrepancy between where he was this year and last year, he is averaging 2 fewer points per game, a 2 percentage point drop in his free throws. They're the 2 main drop-offs that we've seen in Bledsoe from this year to last year. That's not a 4 percentage point drop in his free throw. So that's the big difference between the guy who was the 23rd ranked player last season. Also, 0.5 steals per game. That's really your big thing. 2 steals a game last year, 1.5 this year. Now, 1.5 is nothing to sneeze at, and he's been averaging 1.9 over the last month. But if he goes back to 2 steals a game, then he's an easy top 30 player. That's just how much of an impact you're losing 25% of your production in one category can have on your overall rankings. So for as much of a disaster as people thought Bledsoe was at points this season, he's still going to end this year almost definitely as a top 50 player. The
waiver wire line of the night.
It is also the young gun of the night, and that is Joshy Jackson of the Phoenix Suns. Put together a really strong performance. You could argue almost his best game in the NBA for the Suns. 34 minutes coming off the bench, 19 points with 10 rebounds. He hit 2 triples, had 4 assists, 1 steal, and he blocked 5 shots. Now, you'll have to remind me, but I think I mentioned him yesterday as an interesting blocks stream for today, and I didn't expect him to be getting 5 blocks, no doubt about that. It's been a disappointing year for Jackson, the 193rd ranked player in only 25 minutes per game. He has really struggled to establish himself as any sort of NBA caliber starter player. Maybe he's never going to become that. And yeah, his discrepancies or his lack of ability in terms of shooting the 3-ball, the free throws, the field goal percentage, that's all going to be an issue. Not a high scoring player. The assists have really not been there, just 2.3 per game. A lot of disappointment from Josh Jackson this season. But like last year, is he doing it enough here at the end of the season for people to get sucked in for what he can do the next year? Because that's what happened at the end of last year, where he put up a massive run with Devin Booker out, closed the season with 4 consecutive 20-point games, and had 18 points or more in the last 7 games of last season, where people really started to get excited. He was getting 2 steals a game. In fact, he had 2 steals per game in the final 6 games of last season. Sorry, at least 2 steals per game in the final 8 games of last season. And we're starting to get that push up here with a few, not quite as big as last year, but some decent enough performances. I'm still not buying that Jackson is a starting caliber player or a 30-minute-a-night guy or someone who's ever going to be a good fantasy player. But this is obviously a big step forward. He looked great out there. And if we can see this more than once every 20 games or once every 30 games on average, then he does become a better player. But he just throws so many stinkers in there, and the good games tend to come at the end of the season when injuries are a big issue or teams and players aren't trying quite as hard. I do have to tell you again about the fine folks at Wise who are sponsoring this podcast. Wise is an indoor camera that does it all. It's packed with premium features that allows you to see everything from anywhere for only $20. 1080p full HD, images so clear that you won't miss a thing. There's night vision, there's two-way audio. You can put the Wyze camera wherever you want. You want to check on your kids when you go out. You want to check to see what the babysitter's doing. You want to check on anything that's happening in your house. Your bird bath out the back. You want to check how your vegetable garden's growing. Wyze can do all of this. They have a free rolling 14-day cloud storage service, and there's no subscriptions as well. Nothing is too small for the Wyze cam to watch, because at $20 per camera, you can use it to do whatever you want. You need to go to wyze.com, which is wyze.com/locked to get the guaranteed lowest price on the Wyze cam. And you can also upgrade to a 360-degree camera for just $10 more. Life moves fast. Your camera should too. Go to wyze.com/locked to get that guaranteed lowest price. Let's look at the Deeper League of the night, Deeper League player of the night, and that is the Kornetto, Luke Kornet of the New York Knicks. We saw this at a similar time last season as well from Kornet. He has been so up and down with his playing time. He starts, he goes to the bench, he goes out of the rotation. He starts, he goes to the bench, he goes out of the rotation. Now he's back starting. How long it will last, I've got no idea, but his last two games have been really good. Against the, whatever that was that Chicago trotted out, 29 minutes for the Kornetto, 24 points with 5 triples. That's 10 threes in his last two games. 6 boards and 3 blocks. So in his last two games, he has had 10 triples and 6 blocks with 41 points. That is the definition of a must-roster player. He's got 5 more games left over the course of the rest of this season. So there's value in Kornet. And again, over this last week, he's the 19th ranked player. We cannot trust Fizdale to give him consistent minutes. How many times have we seen this where he starts and then he moves out of the rotation? He had a stretch back in December where he started 7 games in a row, and then the last one of those games, so 7 games in a row, came off the bench for 1, played 34 minutes, started the next 2, and in that last game only played 7 minutes, and then didn't come back to the starting lineup for the next 5, came back in, played 1 game, in and out of the rotation. You know the drill. He's been all over the place in terms of his role. Fizdale hasn't helped. He plays 26 minutes in a start one night, doesn't get into the rotation at all, but now you get the feeling for these final 5 games that you can have as much confidence in him playing those minutes as you can have in any Fizdale player, that he is going to be able to produce. The threes are going to be valuable. The threes and blocks combo is going to be valuable, and a little bit of scoring in there makes Kornet absolutely someone you need to be looking at. Now, he plays on Wednesday, he plays on Friday, he plays on Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all high volume days. But with how he's been playing, he probably does become one of your best 10 players. Definitely in a 16 or 18 or 20 team league, maybe even a 14 team league. But if he's putting up top 20 numbers, then he is in your best 10 players. So even though they look like high volume days and you won't use him, you might not have better players than him. You might have guys that are injured, guys that are struggling, guys that are having their minutes reduced. Kornet pushes into that upper echelon type guy. Now, I wouldn't be projecting him as a top 20 guy, but maybe as a top 70 guy, top 60 potential type of a player for the rest of this season. And that means that he's going to be able to be used on a lot of those days, which maybe is a bit of a surprise to some.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Let's go to the dud of the night. It is Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors. 28 minutes for Pascal here. 6 points with 3 rebounds and 4 assists. One of his worst games of the season, coming obviously at an inopportune time if this is your fantasy playoffs. Last game, he had an unannounced rest. Came back, started, but was really, really limited in this game. He's obviously been one of the biggest surprises of the season, the 49th ranked player over the course of the season. He started out with that 68% field goal percentage or whatever it was for the first month, and that was never going to stick, and it didn't. But what he was being able to do in that time frame since then is boost his other numbers. We've seen the block numbers be solid. We've seen the steal numbers be solid. We've seen the assist numbers rise, and that's the big trade-off there, is when that efficiency started to drop, he started to hit his free throws at a higher rate. He started to get assists at a higher rate. He started to see his usage spike as well. So, for example, he's got a usage of 20% over the course of the season, but over the last 3 months, he's at 23% there. So while the efficiency has dropped, the usage has gone up, but he's been able to maintain that value in different areas. One of the big surprises. Now, I was into Siakam a little bit at the start of the season. I took him with the last pick in a few different drafts. I made a proclamation at the start of the season that I thought he'd play more minutes than Serge Ibaka for the year, which turned out being correct. I didn't see it going this way, but I couldn't have predicted he was going to be as good as he was here. I thought his field goal percentage wouldn't stick, and it didn't, but I didn't think that he'd be able to add those other parts to his game, where over the last 24 games, he's a 20-point per game scorer, which is unbelievably mind-blowing to me. So fantastic stuff from Siakam, exceeded every expectation that I had of him, and just unfortunate that this real turd, probably his worst game of the season, comes at this point in the year. He has barely had a single-figure scoring game. In fact, out of his first 5 games of the year, he didn't get to 10 points in 3 of those, which is a bit staggering. In fact, out of his first 6 games, his highest scoring game was 13 points. He had 13, 4, 10, 4, 9, 10. And you go, well, that's weird. And then he went on that really ridiculous hot streak where he couldn't miss a shot and was banging in points everywhere. And now he's just a consistent 20-point per game guy, of course, outside of today. The plus-minus goat to the day, Mitchie Robinson had the best net rating, continues to look really good, plus 86.5. He should be the starting center for this Knicks team next season, while Shake Milton was really poor in the Sixers' loss to the Mavericks. The whole team was pretty poor, negative 122.6 for Shake. He's not going to be a playoff part of the rotation. He's not going to be a regular part of the regular season rotation outside of when guys are resting and sitting. Let's look at some injury news. Luka Doncic missed today's game with a knee injury. I don't think that we're going to see Doncic in the next game on Wednesday, and there's a chance that he is done for the end of the season. Jonas Valanciunas' season is over. We talked about that yesterday, so that means that Ivan Rabb is an interesting pickup. I think that Joakim Noah might actually come back. You might see some more Yuta Watanabe or Julian Washburn. Watanabe and Washburn, obviously deeper league guys. Noah, I think with that sore knee, he's not going to push into 30 minutes a night. Rabb would be the guy to add there. I mentioned Bob Covington here with his knee issue. Not that we didn't know that he was already out for the season, but he had to have surgery to remove some fragments in his knee to help healing of this bone bruise. So it's obviously a very significant injury that caused him to miss all this time with this bone bruise. He should hopefully be right for the beginning of next season. Dennis Smith Jr. was out of today's game with that back issue flaring up. I think he is done for the season. And then with Kadeem Allen suffering a concussion today, you're going to get mid-30s minutes of Emmanuel Mudiay majority of the time here for the Knicks, I think. While the future MVP, Kyle Kuzma, missed last game with a foot issue. He's questionable again with a foot issue. I reckon his season is really close to being done as well. He's not even providing top 100 value at the moment. So just if you hear that he's missing the next 2 games, he's a pretty clear drop guy. Derek Jones Jr. hurt his knee in the Heat's game today. They are already struggling in terms of their wings with Joshie Richardson and Justice Winslow out. That's going to give a boost to James Johnson because Jimmy... just an excuse to play the track for Jim Johnson. He becomes a deeper league guy if Derek Jones Jr. does happen to miss time. Kadeem Allen, as I mentioned, a concussion. I reckon that might end his season. Jay Crowder left today's game with a quad issue. Derek Favors is already out. So Tabo Cephalosha, George Niang, they're the guys you want to look at in deeper formats. Jeremy Lamb left today's game for the Hornets with an ankle injury. He looked great. He had ankle soreness. Now, we know he sprained that ankle a couple of days ago. So that's obviously a concern. I think missed games are absolutely in play here. Now, Nick Batum didn't play at all for the Hornets today. Dwayne Bacon started and played 6 minutes in a really curious decision. But both of those guys could get a reprieve if Lamb happens to miss time. While Kevin Love has missed the last 2 games, I reckon his season might just be about done. With that shoulder issue, it does obviously help solidify Larry Nance as an option. No telling whether Love actually returns or not, and he's not an auto drop. If you can give it a day or so, maybe you do that. But if by Thursday we still haven't heard anything, then I think you'd have to think with less than a week to go in the season that we probably won't see Kevin Love return this year. All right, let's go into these games now and have a look at what happened across the NBA on Monday. The first game we take a look at, the Pistons lose to the Pacers. A poor loss for those guys. They needed to maintain their winning ways to keep them in a playoff spot. Thankfully for them, the Heat lost and the Magic lost. So all those teams, and the Nets. So all of those 4 teams who are battling for those final 3 spots, everyone lost today in the Eastern Conference, so that does help, I guess, alleviate some of the losses here. Griffin was out, and the Duck, Luke Kornet, also missing. So Thon McCare had one of his better games that was not Toronto Raptors related. 14 points in 42 minutes for McCare, 4 triples and 4 blocks. He can be that threes and blocks sort of an option if Griffin has to miss any more time. Drummond had 18, 17, and 5 with 4 steals. Big from him, while the Duke, Wayne Allington, a guy that we highlighted yesterday as a really strong three-point streamer, he did it for us here. 26 points with 4 triples in a whopping 38 minutes. Reggie Jackson also the last 2 games has pushed up nicely, 22, 6, and 4 after he'd been seeing Ish Smith take a lot of his minutes. Not much else happening there for the Pistons. For the Pacers, Miles Turner was great, 17 and 6 with 3 steals and 5 blocks. That's what we want. And Bojan Bogdanovic, 19, 7 and 6 with 3 steals. I think those 6 assists are a career high for Bogdanovic. The 3 steals are also a nice bonus. He has been remarkably consistent this season. The Pacers were without Darren Collison and Wes Matthews, and they still got the victory because Tyreke Evans and Corey Joseph stepped in. Tyreke filled it up okay, 13, 3 and 3 with 4 threes, a steal and a block. He's really an option if these guys remain injured, Matthews and or Collison, but otherwise he's just a deeper league guy. While Sabonis played well, 18 and 12, and Thad Young, 19, 9 and 5. Some really good numbers for a lot of these Pacers guys. Interestingly for Aaron Holiday, a name to watch in those deeper formats, 10 points with 5 assists if Collison and or Matthews happen to miss any more time. The next game up, another one of those Eastern Conference teams losing. The Toronto Raptors blew out the Magic 121-109. Johnny Isaac, my man, 8 points only, but 2 threes, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Really good across the board production from Isaac. We know that he is going to be playing consistent minutes the rest of the way as the Magic look to get these wins to get them into the playoffs. His offense is clearly not reliable, but it is good to see him putting up those defensive numbers, which can be real game changers. A shit night from Aaron Gordon, just 6 points in 28 minutes, but the 3 blocks were pretty strong, while Vucevic only played the 26 minutes, 13 and 13. Fournier had 21, while the Terrence Ross stream factor, 6 points only for Rossi, but 2 threes and 2 steals. Yeah, that's probably what you're looking at with him. It was also a terrible DJ Augustin night, 8 points with 6 assists, while Michael Carter-Williams saw more minutes, 8, 5, and 6. MCW is absolutely a deep league option, apparently rostered in 0% of Yahoo leagues. He's a 16-team option who is going to be getting all of those backup point guard minutes for the rest of the year. For the Raptors, Danny Green, he banged his thumb early and then proceeded to bang in 7 triples for 29 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. That is an all-around magnificent performance. X-rays were negative on his thumb, but he's going to have more scans, and I would imagine that with the Raptors really prioritizing the playoffs here, he's going to miss some time here. Just 27 minutes for Kyle Lowry, 27 minutes for the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
And with these guys seeing their minutes limited, it really does give Fred VanVleet pretty solid 12-team value. Freddie had 10 points with 7 assists, and he had a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
I think he is a 12-team league guy, VanVleet. Marc Gasol played 25 minutes.
Oh, hi, Mark.
He had 13 points with 4 rebounds and 4 assists, while Ibaka had 15 and 6 in 20 minutes. Those guys, I'd just be looking at them as 14-team league players and 12-team streamers. Well, we already talked about the disappointment of Pascal Siakam and his not ideal game at this point in the season. The next game we look at, the Bucks on the road beat the Nets 131-121. Yanni was back, only 30 minutes for Antetokounmpo, 28 and 11. Unfortunately, couldn't hit his shots from the field, but fortunately could hit them from the line. 39% from the field, 82 from the line on 11 attempts. While Paddy Connaughton slid into the starting lineup to replace Middleton, 12 and 7 with 3 assists and 3 steals. Connaughton's having that fringe 12-team league value, while Sterling Brown had another strong game. He will remain the starter for the rest of the season, I believe, with Tone Snell. Well, let's be honest, he's better than Tone Snell, but with Tone Snell also dealing with an ankle injury. 14 and 5 for Sterlo, got some deeper league appeal there. DJ Wilson also played 22 minutes with Ersan Ilyasova, also sidelined, while Brookie Lopez's great year continued. 14 points, but 4 blocks and 2 steals. He has been an absolute monster this year. Also, shout out to George Hill for turning back the clock. 22 points in 27 minutes, but on 73% shooting, not a replicable number from Hilly. For the Nets, D'Angelo had 28 and 10 with 4 triples, shot absolutely horribly, 27 field goal attempts for those 28 points. Smoke and Joe Harris hit 5 threes for 17, while this was Karis LeVert's best game since he returned. 30 minutes, 24 points, 6 assists. He's back in 12-team consideration. And conversely, Spencer Dinwiddie, maybe not a guy you want to hold on to. Now, he did get into foul trouble here. Spence only played 19 minutes, but we've seen the minutes push back from 30 to mid-20s with LeVert elevating back to high 20s in minutes, and that is impacting what Spencer can do. Damari Carroll, 20 points in 35 minutes. He's providing some interesting 14 or maybe more 16-team league value, and I don't think we're going to be seeing the blue swimmer Alan Crabb back at any point. If you want rebounds as a stream, Ed Davis, there's no one better. 14 boards for Eddie in this game, one of the best rebounders in the entirety of the NBA. Let's go on to the next one. It is the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. The Celtics squeak it out 110-105. No Winslow, no Richardson for the Heat, and then no Derek Jones. The iron shoulder, Goran Dragic, just wild inconsistency from him. But this was big. 39 minutes, 30 points, 5 assists, and 5 steals on 60% shooting. He's a guy that's going to have single digits or big games, it appears like. But with these guys all in doubt, he does have some appeal. But again, they play on Wednesday when there's a ton of games on. Will he make your best 10-man roster? And how confident are you in his role and his production? Because I'm not that confident.
Bam! 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 Bam!
Big game from Bam Bam Adebayo, 19 and 14 with 2 blocks in 31 minutes. Remains a must-roster guy. Well, Olynyk played 40 minutes, 14 and 6, 2 steals and a block with 3 triples. I remember 3-4 weeks ago, someone floated out a theory that Olynyk was going to be removed from the rotation entirely, so he didn't reach the minutes limit in his contract that would put the Heat over the luxury tax. Well, obviously that's false because he passed that limit today, and that does give him that $1 million bonus, which pushes the Heat into the luxury tax. Strong from him, but we can't rely on him unless Derek Jones misses time, because then that means Johnson has to play a lot at the 3, meaning more minutes go to Kelly, and then he can have that 12-team value. With this team pushing for the playoffs, Dwayne Wade's minutes are up, 17, 5, and 7. I think that's also to do with Winslow and Richo being sidelined, but he's been, absolutely a 12-team league guy recently. For the Celtics, Irving and Horford both returned. I think Al's going to miss a few more games here down the stretch. 19, 11, and 10 for Horford, triple-double, while Irving had 25, 8, and 3. Jason Tatum was pretty good, 19, 6, and 5, while Hayward was solid enough for a 14-team league situation, 11 and 4 with 2 steals. Aaron Baines, more minutes than Marcus Morris. I think that the Baines-Horford starting combination will continue for the rest of the year. 4 and 11 for Bainesy. Missed all 7 of his shots remarkably, but there's 11 boards. The 4 of 4 from the line is interesting, and he's going to have some 16-team league appeal, especially if Horford does miss. And then you'll get guys like Shemi Ojeleye and Vanilla Tice move in and take some of those backup minutes. But I think that Bainesy will remain that starting center for the rest of the season. The next game up, I don't even know what to say about this game. The Bulls and the Knicks. The Knicks win 113-105. Jakar Sampson, remember that bloke? 22 points in 30 minutes. The garbage time specialist, 7 rebounds and a 1-1 with 80% shooting. He started the second half over Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot. There is 2 blokes on this team called Sampson, Jakar and Brandon. I've been telling you for a while that Brandon Sampson's not an NBA player. He'd started the last couple of games for Lauri Markkanen, moved out of the starting lineup and played only 8 minutes, and that's probably realistic. He just isn't up to this level, no offense to you, Brandon. Jakar Sampson, an interesting deeper league streamer, while Robin Lopez on his birthday dropped in 29 and 7 with a block, and Big Walt Lemon, only the 6 points, 12 shots, that's pretty shitful, but 5 assists, 3 steals. I think he's going to have a decent run the end of the year. He can be a stream guy. My man Big Shaq Harrison.
Big Shaq.
6 points only, but 10 rebounds, 5 assists and a steal. He's providing solid enough 12-team league value, while Wayne Seldon's that 14-team league point streamer. 34 minutes for Seldo. I think he starts the rest of the season. 11 points. They're limiting the minutes of Ryan Archer-Jacquino, who only played the 17 here. For the Knicks, Damo Dotson, whose minutes and production were down last game. Fizdale at 41 minutes here, 18, 6 and 6 with 6 triples, and only took 8 shots. Big night from Dotto. The fact that he was that on fire and played 41 minutes and only took 8 shots is very weird in itself, but that's strong from Dotson, who remains a back-end 12-team league guy, while Mitchie Robinson, 14, 10 and 4, 3 blocks, 100% shooting, a must-roster guy across all leagues. Kadeem Allen had that concussion issue, while Manuel Mudiay, if you can deal with the field goal percentage hit, because it could be rough, 33% on 21 attempts today is massive, but 17, 5 and 4 from Mudiay in 36 minutes, while the Fort Kevin Knox, Tall Colin Sexton had 19, 9 and 3 in 40 minutes. That's big minutes for Knoxy. Remember about 2 weeks ago when he was playing like 24 minutes a night? Well, now those minutes are apparently back up, and we always need 32 minutes from Lance Thomas whenever we can get them. The next game was the Portland Trailblazers. They beat the Wolves 132-122 on the road. Enes Kanter 20-11 with 4 blocks. That is amazing from Enes Kanter. He's a must-roster guy. While Zach Collins played a lot of minutes, wasn't as productive. 27 minutes for Collins, 8 points, but had those 2 blocks. He's a 14-16 team league guy. Triple-double from Evan Turner, 13, 11, and 10 for Turner. His minutes have been well down of late, but they pushed back up here with Jake Layman out of the starting lineup. Just the 14 minutes for Layman, with Hood moving into that starting lineup and Turner taking some of those extra Layman minutes. Now, Turner's still just a very deep league guy. Seth Curry's still the guy that I want here. 19 points with 5 threes in 22 minutes, despite Rocket Rodney Hood having 21 points and scoring and playing 29 minutes. We know that we can't rely on Hood for any sort of reliability. Flaming Mo Harkless had the defense, and that's who he is at the moment, a defensive specialist, 2 steals and 2 blocks, while the Chief, Al-Farouq Aminu.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Is this shit? I think it is. 9.6 rebounds in a 1-1. Maybe it's moderate. Maybe he wasn't good or shit. But he's really still just a fringe 12-team guy. For the Wolves, Tyus Jones, I like this guy a lot. Obviously, 14, 3, and 10 with 3 steals should be rostered, while Townsy just couldn't hit anything. 17 and 12 on 29% shooting is disappointing, but my man Gorgie Jeng stepped up 18 points on 8 shots with a 1-1. Really, I think he hit all of his shots until his last one. With Taj Gibson, I would imagine that Taj is out for the rest of the year. That's just a guess, but that's how I see things. That does boost Jeng's back-end moderate-sized league value. Dario Saric is getting extra minutes, but it doesn't mean he's a 12-team league guy. 13 points in 28. Well, Josh Okogie, realistically more of a 14-team league guy than a 12-teamer. 9 points with a steal here for Okogie. Well, Wiggins playing a little bit better, 21, 7, and 4, but that shooting, man, 39% kill shot. The fact that he hit all 6 of his free throws, though, is a positive that shouldn't really go unnoticed. The next game up we look at is the Philadelphia 76ers getting blown out by the Mavericks in Dallas, 122-102. There was no Embiid or no general soreness for the Sixers. Redick played well. He had 26. Toby Harris saw a usage bump, 25 and 6 with Embiid and Butler out. And Simmons did what he normally does, 17, 6, and 5, added 3 blocks. Terrible field goal percentage, terrible free throw percentage. So it did hurt you in a couple of categories there. Jonah Bolden started in place of Embiid. It wasn't quite the same as last time, but played 30 minutes. I think that's the encouraging thing, the 30 minutes. Embiid's probably going to be out for the next game as well, so that does embolden Bolden's chances, but he's not a must-roster guy by any stretch. While DRC Zaire Smith got into the game, blocked a shot. I still have really high hopes for Smith for the next 2 to 3 years down the track for Dynasty, but we are a fair way away from that. Jimmy Ennis started in place of Butler. 2 blocks, 4 points, 22 minutes. Really just a very, very deep league guy. For the Mavs, there was no Doncic, and Devin Harris was a DMP CD on the back end of a back-to-back. Justin Jackson, who went from absolutely terribleness on Sunday to a big game here, 24 and 6. We've seen this from him so many times. Look, whenever he has a big game, he shoots like 70% from the field. Unsustainable sort of stuff, which is what happened here. He's a streamer, flyer type of guy. That is it. Salah Mejri also out of nowhere had 16 and 14. Powell was okay. Maxi Kleber was pretty good. I would have Kleber pretty clearly over Mejri as a 12-team stream option. While Trey Burke, he does seem to step it up when Doncic is out. 16, 6, and 5. You might be able to get even 14-team league value out of Burkey while Doncic is sidelined. Lee started in place of Luka and didn't really do anything. That's Courtney Lee if you're unaware that he's actually on this team. The Jazz beat the Hornets pretty comfortably, 111-102. It was more comfortable than that. Charlotte came back furiously late. Kemba scored about 22 points in the last 5 minutes. He ended with 47 points, a huge performance late when Gobert was off the floor. A lot of those points came. Bill Hernangomez, I just want them to give him 30 minutes a night. He's absolutely having 12-team value, 15 and 8 with 2 steals and a block, because I don't know why we're bothering with these 11 minutes for Bismack Biyombo. Dwayne Bacon, also weird, started. Played 5 minutes, never returned to the game. No injuries or anything that we've heard of with Biyombo. Not Biyombo, with Bacon. Look, Bacon isn't very good. I don't think he's Bacon the food is fantastic. Bacon the player, I don't think he's a very good player. I think he's a bit Justin Jackson-like in what he does. He's a bit of a chucker who doesn't offer too much. I don't think he's a rotation caliber NBA player. And maybe Borrego's sensing that at the moment. But of course, that reprieve could come with Lamb being hurt here. Miles Bridges also really struggled after some really strong games, missed all 5 of his shots. I would have Bridges over Bacon pretty comfortably, but I think they're both more fringe 12-team guys. With Bacon struggling, Malik Monk got the extra minutes, 25 minutes for Monk, 6 points with 2 steals. It's very, very, very hard to rely upon him. For the Jazz, the Donovan Mitchell.
He's Don. He's good.
25 points with 4 threes, 5 assists and 4 steals, and went 5 of 6 from the line, while Gobert had 18 and 18. And Tabo Cephalosha, with both Favors and Crowder out, 23 minutes for Tabo, 14 points with 4 threes and 2 steals. In 16-team leagues, if both those guys are out next game, Tabo can be a threes and steals streamer. We've seen it in the past from him. Jingle and Joe had 15 points, all coming from 3, while Ravishing Rick Rubio had 20 points with 13 assists. A callback to his Minnesota days, also in the fact that he shot 39% from the field, but hit all 9 of his free throws. A good Ravishing Rick Rubio. Now, while Crowder was absolutely dreadful before he got hurt, 0 points on 0 of 6 shooting in his 25 minutes before that quad contusion. The last game of the night was the Cavs losing to the Suns on the road, 122-113. Nance started at power forward, only 9 points, but 12 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals. Really must roster guy, while Jordy Clarkson 20 and 6. Now, Clarkson's minutes and touches had gone down a little bit recently. Good to see them back up here. He's a back-end 12-team league guy, while short Kevin Knox, Colin Sexton had 21 points in 39 minutes, 3 assists. He hasn't had more than 3 assists as a starting point guard in the last 3 weeks in any game. He just does not get assists, and you know that this is always going to hold him back as a fantasy prospect. Rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, low threes. He doesn't do anything in those areas. He can score, and he's done that really well, and his efficiency outside of this game has improved a lot. But man, those other areas, he really struggles in those areas. Chetty Osman was also absolutely dreadful. 1 of 12 from the field for 3 points for Chetty. Clearly not a 12-team league guy. For the Suns, McCall Bridges really good here. 41 minutes with 15 points and 3 blocks and 3 threes. I do think that he can be a 12-team league guy under the right situation. While Booker only had 25, but had 13 assists as well. And Rashawn Holmes started in place of DeAndre Ayton, who we haven't heard officially, but I believe he'll be out for the season. Holmes got into really extreme foul trouble, still had 13 and 10 with 2 blocks, and he's a must-roster player. Dragan Bender, one of his better games, 12 and 10 with 2 blocks for Bender. He's going to be a 16-team league guy, I believe. The Suns switched things up with the starting point guard. DeAnthony Melton was out of the starting lineup and out of the rotation, so Ali Okobo could come in and play 13 minutes because they had to give 30 minutes to Jamal Crawford, 6 minutes to Jimmy Fredette, and 25 minutes to Troy Daniels, while the golf ball Ray Spalding came in and played only the 5 minutes. I thought he'd play a little bit more with Ayton struggling and with Rashawn in that pretty extreme foul trouble. All right, let's have a look now. Not doing DFS as I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, but let's have a look at some injury situations and what things we need to pay attention to for Tuesday's games. Only 4 games on, so this is absolute prime streaming territory for you guys in your championship weeks. Kyle Kuzma for the Lakers is questionable. Tyson Chandler's out. We know LeBron's out. Reggie Bullock's listed as probable. So if Kuzma's out, it does open up those opportunities for maybe Johnny Williams, maybe Flaming Mo Wagner can get some extra minutes there in LA as well. I imagine that Wagner, not in LA, in Oklahoma City, I imagine that Wagner would get the start if Kuzma is out. And if I had to place a bet, I would think that Kyle does sit this one out. For the next game, both Taurean Prince and John Collins are both doubtful for Atlanta. And then for the Kings game, Harry Giles has been ruled out. Yogi Ferrell's appeared on the injury report, so deeper leagues might want to have a look at Alec Burks if Ferrell gets ruled out. Kenny Fareed for Houston is doubtful. Gerald Green is questionable, while Marvin Bagley is listed as questionable after missing the last game with a stomach illness. Now, if Bagley's out, that boosts the value of Bielitsa, it boosts the value of Cauley Stein, and Costa Koufos for those stream-type numbers. And the last game is Denver and Golden State. Jamal Murray is upgraded to probable with that ankle injury, while Andre Iguodala is listed as questionable with rest. Kevin Durant and Quinn Cook are both going to play despite the, I believe it's the funeral for their mutual friend slash Durant's brother who did pass away last week. So they are both going to play, though, in this game. So let's have a look at some potential stream options on a day where you really do have to pay attention and get some of these stream guys in as much as you possibly can. You really, again, there's only a few days this week when you can potentially get these stream options into your team, and this is one of them. So making the right choice in the right categories is paramount. Now, if you're looking to add points, I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is in a really good spot here in LA with LeBron out and potentially with Kuzma out as well. Alex Len with the Undertaker Dwayne Dedman out. He's going to be getting a ton of minutes at center. You got Justin Anderson, who started the last game and scored over 20 points for the Atlanta Hawks with Prince out. Kent Bazemore, another option. Bryn Forbes, Fanta Pants, Kevin Huerter. Now, big sexy Alex Caruso, Lance Stevenson, Marco Bellinelli, these are all options that can be added, and that was sort of in order of preference as to how I like those guys. For 3-point streamers, Caldwell Pope's the number one guy there. I like Herder, Bullock, Bryn Forbes, Pat Mills, Vince Carter an option as well, with both John Collins and Torian Prince unlikely to play. Bazemore, Bellinelli, Davis Bertans potentially, and Justin Anderson is another option there as well for the 3-pointers category. If we're looking at rebounding options, you've got Alex Len as a really strong option there. Jakob Poeltl perhaps. Mason Plumlee is another decent enough rebounder, and Bielitsa, and then you go down to PJ Tucker as another guy who could be of interest in that category. When we're looking at assists, you're looking at Rondo, who's available in some leagues somehow still, so go and add him. Derek White is someone to look at there. Monty Morris in Denver, especially if Jamal Murray is limited in any way. Patty Mills, Kevin Herter can add 3 or 4 assists. Lance Stevenson and big sexy Alex Caruso all having potential to influence that category. With steals, PJ Tucker's probably your number one guy there. Rondo, Derek White, they can all get steals. Caruso, Caldwell Pope, Bazemore, Bembry, another guy for those defensive numbers who can get assists also. Real value in DeAndre. For the blocks category, I think we're looking at Poeltl, Nerlens Noel, maybe, probably Alex Len over him as an option there. Mason Plumlee, you could have Bielitsa as an option there. Alex Caruso sometimes can get some blocks, some shots, so that he's maybe someone to have a look at, though obviously not as reliable as those big men. But if you're looking for assists with some other small man numbers, he could help there. When we're looking at trying to improve our field goal percentage, Deontay Davis is a deep league option. Jakob Poeltl, Mason Plumlee in play there. Kevon Looney, Nerlens Noel, Alex Len, they all have an ability to influence that category on this day. While free throw percentage a little bit harder to influence, but Bellinelli and Patty Mills, along with Contavious Caldwell Pope, can be influential players there. Bryn Forbes, Reggie Bullock, and Davis Bertans and Malik Beasley, a couple of other guys who can have an impact in that free throw percentage category. That'll wrap it up for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Make sure you are subscribing to this podcast by using the new Himalaya podcast app. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and on Spotify. Leave me a review. 5 stars would be great. And when you're in the car, just tell your smart device to play the podcast Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Kyle Anderson.